consistently one of the best non-Korean hopefuls. I mean, it's just a tall order for anyone to beat this guy. He spawns on the bottom left, repping Ting. He is Neeb.
And spawning over in the top right, representing Team Root, it is DisK. Why does Neeb look like he's superimposed on his own bedroom?
Like it's a green screen behind him?
Yeah, he looks like... I've been watching a little bit of Star Trek recently, like old school Star Trek, and he looks like a hologram.
Amazing. It's because, like, for some reason, something about his lighting, it makes it look like he has almost a black outline.
Yes.
Like, I guess it's like his hair and then his earbuds and then his chair or something. So, yeah, it does look like it's... The green screen's almost malfunctioning, but it's also just a new background, isn't it? I feel like we've seen him in a different one before.
Yeah,
stalkery.
He maybe moved things around because he's like, too many people talked about my goddamn bed.
Dude, that was the worst thing, actually. So, like, I'm actually back with my parents as, like, there wasn't, to me, like, my lease was up. I didn't really see a purpose into, like, living alone during COVID when there's, like, nothing to do. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'll just move back and I'll move out at a later date. One of the stupidest things was that the bed was the most talked about of my stream for years. You know, it was just like so obvious that I was living in my childhood bedroom. And then just the top, like the cherry on top was that I had a mural of like ocean life that had been like glued on since I was like 6 years old. And everyone just wanted to point that out. Everyone just was like, you know, that was the easiest joke to make, you know? So I would totally understand where Neeb's coming from.
Okay, so this game, it's different to a lot of the other PvPs we saw earlier. And it was Drogo that said he was practicing with Neeb, right? I think it was Drogo or it was Harsum, one of the two, but they were talking about... Okay. And they were talking about how Neeb just made them feel silly in this matchup, which definitely makes me think, like, Neeb knows a thing or two. And he always has. Like, I know it's a long time ago now, but Neeb was the pioneer of PvP back when Disruptors became a thing. That's how he won his title against Trap in the final 4-0, which you think about that now, that is nuts. But yeah, he's gone for the low ground wall off with the Nexus and the Stargate.
Yeah, we did have an interesting start on 2000 Atmospheres, right? Like the actual forwardly placed gateway, the faster Nexus, it's supposed to be a bit different. We did hear Showtime's thoughts on things, however, and how he was, you know, saying that he didn't really want to play around with the potential riskiness of it, but it is like a strong counter to... He was saying it was a counter to the proxy Stargate, right? Not that DisK is doing that, but DisK doesn't anticipate this probably, and as such isn't so well set up to block it or to respond to it. And then, you know, it's Neeb doing this too. He's usually a very like straight and narrow player, so what could follow this up from a guy like Neeb?
Yeah, that's the big question. Like, I dabble in a little bit of Protoss these days. That being said, Root to DisK is marching on. He is able to get a little bit of a damage done with these 4, but that Void Ray is so gosh darn quick. The Forge for Neeb, that isn't because he wants to play a macro game. It's because cannons make this so much harder to actually bust through. And that is exactly what Neeb's going to start making. And right now, I don't know how you bust through this. The second Void Ray will be out very quickly. Oh.
Now this Forge edition has actually kind of been... its addition has really helped the survival rate of this opener. Because if without the cannons, you are just depending on some warpings and whatever voiders you can pump out, eventually the Stalkers, either they start picking away easily, early, which they haven't done so far, or they eventually get to that one-shot potential, and then when the voider's getting one-shot, it can be much easier to break through if there aren't cannons. But we got 2 cannons, we're going to have 2 shield batteries. 1 pylon is like a little concerning, but it's very unlikely it'll be targeted.
Sorry, that caught me coughing. There is a robo, there is more shield batteries coming out. DisK losing that probe was so huge, by the way. I saw his head shake as well as it happened, because he probably wanted to get his own shield batteries, and yes, that probe is late to the party, but yeah, this is PvP.
Yes, it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? 1 Void Ray almost going down, but not quite. Neeb does feel the need to overcharge his shield battery And I don't think he would have if it hadn't taken so much hull damage. Now the shield battery overcharge is going to disappear, and DisK's own shield batteries are about to finish. So if he warps in another handful of stalkers, is exactly what he's doing, I think he has reached the point that if they're all firing together, and that is a bit of a trick to it, they'll one-shot these void rays. But that is really the trick, honestly, is that actually getting every single shot at once can be difficult to do. We have it happen once, maybe twice, not quite. Does grab it on the second volley, however, and Neeb is down to a single void ray. His immortal only about halfway done. This is where the cannon's actually buying that little bit of extra time.
It's got to be said, DisK is actually putting on so much pressure on Neeb right now. The resources lost tab is definitely in favor of DisK, but there will be immortals out soon. Neeb was quite quick to throw down that robo. More cannons joining. This is... Neeb's living on a tightrope right now. Oh, what the hell? Did he just kill himself there?
He did, a little bit. Saw a little bit of a shake of his head. I don't know if it was a pylon or shield battery, but it is not the end of the world. The overcharge or the prismatic alignment is now gone for Neeb, but he does have a shield battery overcharge if he has the energy anyways. More cannons have been added on. A second immortal is about out. The one void ray barely not going down. And steam does start to run out for the guy in one base, DisK here. So he's starting to kind of get through. I don't know if it's enough.
One pylon though, Zombie Grub. That one pylon is powering... Oh, in fact, there is one behind it, so DisK did realize that momentarily. But Neeb, yeah, he is holding on here. He hasn't had a gateway for quite some time. Shield battery goes down again, but that was enough stalkers to take out that immortal. But, oh, you are right. There isn't too much keeping this alive, but oh my goodness, is DisK doing it? The immortal runs away from the shield battery.
I think it actually was the first immortal getting its shield popped like that really might have been the nail in the coffin. I was surprised to see Neeb actually go forward, but I think what happened is that he realized if he didn't get on in front of his static defense, then more of it on the right side was going to go down, right? But in getting in front of his defenses, he also popped that immortal into a very vulnerable scenario. So once down an immortal, only on the one void ray, it was DisK's time to shine. And it still is very possible for both players to make their way out of this. It's closer than we expected, and I actually still don't know quite how to call it, but Neeb no longer has any void rays. He's about to have a second immortal, but DisK's stalker count is once again intimidating. He goes after the immortal. There's not a shield battery there. Oh, but the body block, saves it for an extra second. It does inevitably go down, but the backup immortal has arrived.
That was so damn close. The Zealot really held on strong there. Neeb has managed to get a lot of... Oh, in fact, he's managed to get a lot of cannons up behind this. But that was a nice force field by DisK, realizing that he can utilize this tight space that Neeb's fighting in. So that was good by him. Neeb's firepower will be up to 2 immortals very soon. Oh, but DisK, he's still on a clock with all this. His main base is actually mining out pretty hard right now. He's down to just 6 mineral patches, maybe 4 soon.
And that's the problem for the attacking player. DisK knows that he's on a timer, but at least the shield batteries, they're not things that have to be remade. They are going to just accrue more energy. He finds an immortal again, a bit vulnerable, gets it with a 2-shot, gonna find the second immortal as well. Barely not able to grab that, however, as so many more shield batteries are placed in that mineral line. Makes for very inefficient mining, but means the immortal survives.
Yeah, Neeb's trying to get out any unit he can at this point. He's back up to 2 immortals again. I feel I've said that many times this game so far. This is a 9-minute one base all-in. That Stargate is not going to stay alive. Neeb's just, producing anything he can, but DisK, I feel this is running out of steam now, and I think Neeb's going to be able to hold.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't actually pop the immortal forward like I think he hoped he would with the force field there. He does grab one of the 2. The second one is still very healthy. Also, with the current situation, DisK now has to really run ahead of his shield batteries to get damage done. Initially they're just like right up in front of all the structures, in front of all the army. Now he's the one that has to run away from his own static defense. I say that, however, Neeb actually is the one feeling very confident. He actually takes the engagement, which he absolutely can. 2 immortals was just too much for DisK's remaining stalkers to deal with, and that is a 1-0 to start things off in Neeb's favor.
Definitely. I think... If DisK could do that whole game over again, losing that first probe and not having those shield batteries up way earlier, I think it delayed a lot of that in what he wanted to do. And with that being said, if you could have shield batteries literally 30, 40 seconds earlier, it would allow poking to start way, way earlier for DisK. I think that was maybe one of the super determining factors of that game. But yeah, that definitely excites me for the rest of the series because Neeb, he felt like the one that could probably do quite a bit better with that hold, actually. Like, Micro and the Stalkers, I think DisK did about as good as you could with what he had. But yeah, definitely felt like Neeb, like his strategy, the holding, it was all pretty solid, but definitely a few units maybe getting picked off when they shouldn't have done.
It was close. There was definitely a moment where it even seemed like DisK was maybe going to do it. And yeah, if his shield batteries were there 30 seconds faster, then you got to wonder how much more that pushes the snowball, how much more that means the one immortal going down when it did actually is the nail in the coffin. But thankfully for Neeb, at least, DisK did slip up a little bit, is not successful with the pressure. But I feel like he was almost successful enough that if I were Neeb, I'd be scared of doing that again. You know, if that went swimmingly for Neeb, if he was like, I know exactly what to do, and he executed it perfectly, he's probably going to try that again. But DisK actually had a lot to say there. So I don't know if we'll see another cheeky Gateway Nexus. We are going into Romanicide, which has been another map for that opener.
Yeah, I know I said this before as well, like maybe not a lot of people know about DisK, but if that's the first game they've seen, they can definitely look at it and be like, this is maybe going to be more of a series than they initially thought. Because his micro's clean. He's very good with Blink Stalkers when he gets Blink. I know when I play him as a Terran player, I'm always like, I know this guy's going to Blink Stalker me. I know it for a fact. And he is very good with them. He plays a ton. Like, he really is a little bit of a practice machine right now over on the EU ladder. Anyhow, spawning over in the bottom right-hand side of Romanticide is Ting's Neeb.
And in the top left, representing Roots Gaming, he is DisK.
So the two Protosses that we've heard about that have been very scary in PvP, which is MaxPax and Neeb, are both the guys going for the one gate expands on the low ground by the looks of it, which is this... I know people were doing it on Oxide and Pillars of Gold, but the fact that they're feeling so confident that they can get away with it on any map and players are getting to know that they do it on any map too, that is crazy to me.
It is somewhat a natural development, though, if we really zoom out, I guess, on the state of PvP and where, you know, Blizzard's last breath tried to push it, which is that they gave the Protoss the shield battery overcharge, take away the power of the robo proxies that were dominant. And with that added defender's advantage, it seems like everyone is going to push the issue, right? Like, that is what happens. You have the outliers who push the all-ins or push the macro cheese, if you will, and they're outliers to begin with, but then they pave the way, right? So we see more and more bases taken in StarCraft 2. Just, you know, look at Wings of Liberty. I know it's a different starting economy and all that, but even in Wings of Liberty itself, its lifespan went from one base versus two in a TVZ, being actually in some games the only bases you take, to being, you know, by the end of it, you know, 3 base versus 4. Reload Infestor is super fun, but you get my point. Like, it goes into better defenses and more macro games as people mature in a game as complex as RTS.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's just, I felt that this was a law that was never going to change, you know? Like, I thought it was going to stay. Oh, wow, a sentry second? Not something like a Stalker to deal a little bit of extra damage to these buildings. I guess he did that the previous game too, right? Where he got the scout off very, very quickly. And this game, DisK is going to go for his own Stargate behind all this.
I think that is an important point. Had Neeb been a little more hesitant in realizing, like, oh, it's going to be a 3-gate versus me, then maybe his Forge a little bit later, his cans are a little bit later, and that's a whole other, you know, avenue we could take in imaginary land. But that sentry did help out. It's not helping deal with the buildings per se, but there's the hallucination. It's going to successfully scout DisK's own Stargates, which means, what is DisK really hoping to do with this now?
Yeah, that's the big question. Like, Neeb had the probe out on the map. He saw the 2 adepts, so he's like, you know what? I'll just get a wall up. I'll be getting my Nexus. It is a very different game because while Neeb gets the scout off and gets to see what he's up against, it's not as if It's not as if DisK doesn't get to know what he's up against either. His Nexus isn't that delayed, honestly. And that Stargate's right at the front. This is... It doesn't feel too terrible. The one thing we can say is the extra committal to the earlier gateway for DisK. That definitely costs you something. And also he is slightly behind in probes. But all said and done, we're going to have much more even a game here.
Yeah, exactly. DisK was able to deny the Nexus for so long. It did put Neeb into a slightly uncomfortable position on top of the fact that he really wanted to get that sentry, which meant the blocks last even a little bit longer. You kind of have to choose to add on your technology. Just, you know, if you wait out for your Nexus to be the first thing, it's going to take a long time. So that delays Neeb's build, and DisK is able to say, okay, I think this is playable, even though he is still down in economy. And we still have a lot of other things to take into factor here, which is, most importantly, Neeb is actually proxying a gateway, and a Twilight Council comes down at home, and yep. Gotta predict that Dark Shrine. Oracle seems like it's gonna go down. Oh, barely recalled. But the Dark Shrine, dude. The Dark Shrine. Is DisK going to actually sniff it out?
I'm really liking Neeb's play a lot this game. The fact that he knew he could get away with that recall to keep that Oracle alive, it's quite a big deal. That allows you to be safe against DTs and stuff yourself. But the quick switch, I don't entirely understand the single Phoenix that he has. That'd be something I'd love to know about. DisK does turn up in the main base, though, with his own little group of Phoenix, and does deal a little bit of economic damage, which... that is nice for him, but he doesn't get any big info on what's actually going down this game.
He was already building a robo, though, so he's not going to go into his own blink, and I'm actually not... I'm not sure what his original plan was, because that robo did come down before his scouts, but I think with the scout, it is a little bit worrying to see no Forge, for instance. That can sometimes be that they've put in a Dark Shrine somewhere and holding on to the minerals, warping DTs. So I like that DisK has that faster robo. Okay, it is still going to be blink. He just delayed it. So I think he was probably actually just thinking, like, being mindful. Like, oh, you know what? I don't know what he's doing. He could actually have a Dark Shrine. Yeah,
and the observer timing as well. That's literally just popped out. Maybe he was hoping to send it all the way across the map, but in fact, where is it? Oh, it's right there for the DT, and Neeb, this hasn't worked out for him at all.
No, but it's also one of those games where one DT is not a huge investment, and the Dark Shrine is, you know, towards the beginning of its life is an investment, of course, and that can sometimes put you behind. Overall in PvP, it's a mainstay structure. Like, you don't kill it because you don't need it. Like, you're going to use it eventually. So I don't mind this game for either party. DisK, you know, kind of was still behind in the probes. Now he's ahead. Neeb has a faulty DT follow-up, but still has his third Nexus finishing. And Blink is even already done for him. Both +1 starting at very similar times. I mean, yeah, this is certainly the more even game. It's going to go on for a much longer time than the last one.
It certainly is. These Phoenix, though, like, they're almost guaranteed damage, especially on this map, and they will be for some time. These DTs, it's a question of, well, once you get Cannon up or Observer in the right place, they're not going to deal that much damage anymore. I mean, this started off with me being like, okay, I like everything that Neeb's doing, but it's got to be said, Risk is absolutely doing a lot of good stuff, too. Just 3 Phoenix was his committal. This is a bit gnarly, though.
Yeah, finally gets one taken down, but man, for the price of 3 Phoenix, you get a decent number of probes. So don't mind them at all. It's a healthy sacrifice there. Still give the Phoenix a round of applause.
And keeping that Oracle alive for Neeb as well. He's just used it to just be on his side of the map, be very careful. Still hasn't lost it, despite the Phoenix. And he's just planting a lot of very safety stasis traps. I like where this game's going. I still don't know exactly where it's going to end up at all. They're both heading into charge now. The +1's almost done for the both of them. DisK gets first confirmation that there is a 4th base going up. He'll probably make the same move and mirror his opponent.
Right, yeah. That is, he's not really... Yeah, without charge, DisK is not really set up to engage and try and punish the faster 4th, so you do just kind of match it. He's got his +1 finishing, but so does Neeb. Neeb's already on his way to +2. His charge is faster. The only thing DisK has going right now was past tense, a slightly better economy, and then now is the inclusion of a Warp Prism. So he can get out on the map and kind of threaten either with a direct attack or with a run by or warping into the main. I do think he has to be very careful. Charge is finishing for Neeb, and DisK still is only halfway done with it.
So DisK hasn't even started +2 here, Zombie Like, this is obviously a big timing attack. Kind of getting caught out a little bit. Doesn't lose anything straight away, but Neeb, he's getting on top of this army now.
He is going to run out of Zealots surprisingly quick. I actually am surprised he engages here. The sheer number of Stalkers of DisK, which granted Neeb didn't quite see the full depth of it, did kind of signal an intention to engage. One that, I mean, yeah, charge would have been, I think, the easiest way to deal with this. Just pull back, wait for even more charge lots. Neeb did engage. DisK did have a chance to micro backwards, take out the Zealots, and then jump perhaps on Neeb's remaining forces. But I think actually a time has passed. Neeb is almost at an equal supply of Stalkers. He's got a Sentry maybe for a Guardian Shield. No, not quite actually, but he has Defender's Advantage. He's got Sack Defense set up, and he still has those charge lots being warped in. Now DisK has his own, but very even army fights, and that +2 is approaching for Neeb.
Yeah, that +2 is the big deal here, I feel. And Neeb, so crazy that he feels so confident about blinking into this, because he doesn't need to, right? Like, his fourth base was a lot faster than his opponent. And DisK, I feel that he's pouncing on the error. Big blinking by DisK. That means he can't really truly retreat from this fight, and this is a true NA PvP right here.
Yeah, I think that once again, Neeb is playing with a bit of fire by engaging into DisK, away from his shield batteries, into a guy who was very much so dedicating to an attack. He has started his 4th Nexus and his +2, but he was still willing to take the engagement because he has 4 more Stalkers than Neeb, continuing to reinforce with more charge lots. Neeb thinks he can actually take him down here in the middle of the map, and he's just shy of doing so, so he will return back to his shield batteries, but it's also because his Zealots are actually playing Ring Around the Rosie. There you go, they've joined up with the main fight, and Neeb takes down DisK's Warp Prism and takes down the engagement.
I mean, Neeb handled that beautifully in that whole fight. I don't know whether DisK realized, but +2 did kick in during it, and you see DisK kind of rubbing his head a little bit there, maybe out of frustration, but outstayed his welcome. But he kind of had to do something. He really put a lot of his eggs into that basket there with the delayal of +2, and I like the idea. Neeb kind of went for it a little bit too, maybe a bit too eagerly, but Neeb now incredibly far ahead, and GG is called.
Yeah. I'm with you. I think that was... I was questioning DisK's move out. I was like, yeah, but his charge isn't really ever... it's really not close to finishing. So I don't know about this. But then with Neeb being even overeager to a small extent, I was like, okay, hold on. Maybe this can work. But it looks like Neeb had actually sized up the position correctly. He would have had to have made a really bad error in judgment to actually fully be punished, since it was him with the upgrade economic shield battery lead, right? So he didn't make that big of a mistake, but these have been kind of closer games than I think a lot of people expected. It is still a 2-0 in favor of Neeb, which is, I guess, the score people predicted. After this break, we're going to find out if DisK can actually put a point on the board and surprise many people out here, but it's going to be a tough one. We'll see you soon. Welcome back to perhaps the last game of the day. If DisK can't bring it back here at a 2-0 deficit, he will be falling down to the lower bracket, but that is worth mentioning. He's got a second chance. And going up against Neeb, well, it's always a tall order. Going up against any of the big three of this particular region is a tall order. DisK has actually been almost delivering. He's gotten close a couple of times, but not quite yet. Can Blackburn be a different story? In the bottom left, up 2-0, he is Ting's Neeb.
And spawning over in the bottom right as the red Protoss, it is Root DisK. I was kind of wondering if DisK was going for anything a little bit different here, because his first pylon's a little bit later than Neeb's, and I was like, oh, was he going to go for a forge? But obviously not. It was just maybe a bit of an error, maybe in the nerves getting to him just a smidge here, but just that little edge of having a late pylon, that kind of stuff can get to me when I kind of, my build isn't as clean as it should be, Zombie Grub.
You start to overthink that, then you miss your second depot, and you start to overthink that, and then, yeah, it can be a sign of things. I gotta say, DisK, I mean, the first game, so darn close, you can crumble after that adrenaline rush. You get so close to defeating the guy that you're not supposed to beat, and then you feel it can sometimes actually lead into just a pretty lame series from there on out, actually, just as much as a very one-sided first game can. But DisK brought another adrenaline rush type of game in game 2 where there's possibilities. There absolutely was, especially if his charge was 80% done when I was talking about it, because I was talking about it was like 40% done. If it was just a 20, 30 seconds faster, then I feel like maybe Neeb does overcommit because it was supposed to be close. But that didn't actually end up happening. It's still a close game. I think this is a series where the overall score won't actually reflect the games. And people might just look at the bracket and scoff and be like, of course Neeb 3-0 this what's his face. But DisK is showing that he has some tricks up the sleeve PvP wise. He's got really great micro with it. And he just needs that little bit extra to actually get a victory.
If the rest of the series was anything to go by, this is DisK playing Neeb's kind of game, right? Like the one gate fast expand kind of style. Neeb did go for the much earlier Stargate, whereas DisK went for the much earlier Nexus. But I do feel that this is beneficial for Neeb here. Like, look at this gas count of DisK. It's escalating incredibly high if this was the plan all along.
That is odd. It's 400 gas is more than you can throw down. I mean, unless you throw in every tech structure. That's already a sign of a very, very large mistake. DisK is going to handle the Adept. That's all well and good, but where's the next step here, DisK?
Yeah, I'm looking at this, and I really did mean it when I say it. Making that first pylon late is yes, you supply block for a bit of time. Your gateway's later, your cyber core's later. It meant that even if he did make a Stargate as fast as possible, it would still be 4 or 5 seconds later than Neeb's. The whole situation, it just doesn't spell confidence to me, and it can really shake you up when nothing is working thus far, and then going onto the third map, you have to then play like this. There's no way you can enter a PvP confidently against a guy that's one gate fast expanding on this map in particular with your normal 2-gate shenanigans.
Maybe DisK, he is not super comfortable playing the 1-gate faster Nexus, so he's kind of going off of not intimate knowledge, the opposite of intimate knowledge. He's kind of I know what to do, I've done this before, but I kind of, okay, maybe the gas is supposed to come down a little bit later, that type of thing, right? Because it definitely doesn't feel as streamlined as Neeb. DisK is finally adding on that Blink and some Stalkers, and probe count's not, well, actually it did just get terrible, but it's supposed to be a little more even. Yeah, DisK is already not feeling so great for him in game 3.
Yeah, and I don't think this is going to get better before it gets worse, it's Phoenix are being added on, and I know from watching way too much Rotterdam stream that Phoenix are pretty good and they're a tempo-based thing. And if you're ahead already and you're going Phoenix, it's just one of those things where you can constantly deal out damage. And we saw that from the Romanticide game where DisK, the one thing that was really keeping him in the game, not just in the game, maybe ahead in the game, was the Phoenix. And Neeb, he's the kind of guy that I think he's very meticulous with his control as well. And that's something that, while Blackburn, I don't think is the best for it, given those slow zones on the left side of this base, getting into the natural and stuff, and if the game goes on, it will be a little bit tricky to deal with.
And this is also interesting, just adding on charge right off the bat. He's, yeah, I'm getting like, you know, PvT feelings right now instead of PvP, but right in the Phoenix charge is probably not what DisK was expecting that Twilight Council to be researching. His Adept did get in there and got some sight on the plan, but can't tell what's actually researching there.
I mean, that's super fast charge, right? Like, you don't often see blink skipped, but in my head, I'm like, oh, of course, you don't have to worry about anything in the air because you've got the Phoenix, so you don't need the Stalkers to begin with. And I guess, in general, this map, even if you did go blink Stalkers, trying to harass and deal like the economic damage, which you can deal on a lot of maps and just kind of poke and stuff, it is much harder on Blackburn.
Yeah, I've always viewed this map as a map that kind of encourages just the headbutting of the action figures, you know, just like you have to, and you just go in the middle of the map and it's whoever wins, great. Not really much on the run bys or harassments or on pulling you from left base to right base, or in this case, north to south or whatever. So I agree. I feel like this actually might be a very good plan for the map in particular, whereas DisK is more just kind of trying to play catch up with Neeb a little bit. He's like, okay, I can't bust you. I can't win with a sharp timing. I'm going to try and kind of do what you're doing, but I don't play with Phoenix Charge, right? So he's going into a much more typical Blink build, which that in and of itself is not bad. I think this is playable. It's just all of the beginning stuff we were talking about, the uncertainty that DisK seems to be showing, with the total certainty that Neeb is showing as he moves in with Zealot Phoenix. That's why I'm a little worried for DisK.
Yeah, and Phoenix, you don't run away from that when the Graviton Beam goes down. So that's 2 Stalkers immediately gone. And Neeb, I don't think he really anticipated encountering DisK on that side of the map, but he is going to have that gateway down at the north side here by the gold base of DisK, and Neeb supply, he is ahead, and I think his army's also just stronger.
Yeah, it's going to be able to chase down anything that DisK tries to evacuate with, so he's just got to stand his ground around shield batteries, which is exactly what he's doing. Like, he's also realized that, I mean, trying to out-micro this isn't going to happen. Even poking forward at the Stalkers is a bit dangerous with the type of army that Neeb has. Neeb is going to go for it. The shield batteries are up and more are on the way. Another group of Stalkers from DisK actually on the left side. Perhaps Neeb was not anticipating that. And there's certainly one bad thing about Neeb's army. That is, when it's used its charge, when it's maybe used a lot of its energy, it does kind of fizzle. The Stalkers will out-micro it with shield batteries there, as the charge is, you know, is on cooldown. So, and of course, charges also don't do very well against that Sim City. So I actually like that that could have been a lot scarier. Had he been late to the reaction, had he thought, I can deal with this, and actually moved out, that's when he's probably dead.
I couldn't agree more with you. Like, I think his Sim City there was really good. He paid a lot of respect to me, but this is one of the issues about Phoenix. Like, they're in the main base, and they're going to do a grand tour around the bases of DisK, unless he just stays here, just dances with the Stalkers almost, and 15 probes down just like that, and wow, just 1 Phoenix falls. Yeah. I feel that was almost like more hurtful getting the Phoenix kill than not getting it, just because it's like, wow, I just lost 15 probes for that.
Yeah, right. And the only reason it died is because there's a slow zone to the left of his base. It wasn't even kind of supposed to happen on other maps. So Neeb is, I mean, it's past maybe the scariest point, because DisK does have a Templar Archives. The charge lots are no longer going to be an easy wraparound on mispositioned Stalkers. He should be adding in Archons, which will handle charge lots much better at the very least. But the Phoenix are still able to run around, pick off probes, really threaten and push back on any attempted map control from DisK, which is definitely one of the things missing. I am glad to see that DisK managed to sneak a probe over, out of sight of anything, grab a 4th base pretty much at the same time that Neeb does, because I think it would be all too easy to get comfortable on 3 bases and just try and wait this one out. But DisK has got to move on.
Yeah, definitely. Neeb's army composition is really cool, by the way. Like adding on the Colossus, getting the second Robo as well. I really thought like, oh, is he going to go into Disruptors? Doesn't really work out that well with the charge lots and no blink and what have you. But no, he's just going for a very, very, very strong, powerful army. And yeah, you talked about this map being a bit of a headbutt map, and there will certainly be a lot of potential for that. But Neeb's army, it's very hard to engage in double Colossus with all this. By the way, that is the most adventurous immortal I've seen in quite some time.
Oh, it's like the poor little hermit crab just walking on the beach and gets like swallowed up by a bird or something. Oh, it feels kind of sad for it. It was the lone immortal as well, the last of its kind. It's now gone. And yes, the more important Colossus are still alive, covered by a gigantic number of zealots. The Archon's also getting mixed in for Neeb. I'm getting flashbacks to like Rain PvP in StarCraft 2. Are we back in 2014? Maybe so.
I mean, Colossus, they're not normally the go-to in this matchup. Like, people tend to find that Disruptors, the big hits, can be very, very good. But especially when you're going up against large lines of, you know, Archon, Immortals, and what have you, the Colossus, they can be very susceptible to those Disruptor hits. Disruptors always force them to move. Colossus stand on top of all the other units anyhow, meaning Disruptors can hit those as well as the ground units. But now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of it.
Neeb has just got a simple army lead. He's up by 20, so he moves in here with also a very different composition. He does initially send his Zealots a little too far forward, perhaps, a little away from the Archons and the Colossus, and they are starting to get destroyed by DisK's Archons that are very well protected by an overcharged shield battery, and 4 of them at that. So I think Neeb does have to actually consolidate his army, get everything firing at once, and then he has some extreme firepower. But it wasn't quite there, actually. The Colossus were, distracted for a little while.
The Colossus, the range, though, you can really see them poke in, and those shield batteries, they're all dry now. But
whoa.
DisK, he blinks on top. He snipes down one of the Colossus, 2 of the Colossus. That was a big deal to try and keep him in this game. But the Phoenix, very nicely managed by Neeb.
I feel like if DisK was able to have any actual type of surround or concave opportunity, that would have been the biggest difference maker. But when he blinked in to grab the Colossus, he might have gotten 2. He also blinked the Stalkers into extreme